In this video, I share the incredible restoration journey of a vintage Commodore PET 4032, one of 4 units originally used at Lincoln Middle School in Alameda, California from 1983 to 1988. After spending decades in storage, these iconic 8-bit classroom computers were nearly sent to e-waste. Thankfully, in early 2022, a longtime friend of mine, Charles, a salvage expert and retro tech enthusiast I've known since the mid-1990s, rescued all 4 PETs from the Alameda Unified School District and passed them along to me. By July 2022, I rehomed 3 of them to fellow vintage computing enthusiasts, Joel, Jared, and Mike. I kept one, but later handed it off to my friend Marcus in August of 2022, thinking I wouldn't have time to restore it. Fast forward to February 2025, Marcus hadn't done much with it beyond occasionally dusting it off, so after a bit of negotiation, I got it back and began a full restoration. Now, in June 2025, this classic Commodore PET 4032 is finally back to life. Join me as we begin with a brief photo slideshow, starting with the 2022 rescue of the PET 4032 computers, followed by my initial surface cleaning and inspection of the unit I intended to retain. You'll also see reference photos from Marcus taken in early 2025, just before I reacquired the unit, followed by documented highlights from my complete hardware restoration process. Then we dive into various video clips captured throughout my 4-month journey transforming this machine from trash to treasure. For most of the parts used or replaced, I've included links in the video description, such as the Commodore PET badge label, various capacitors, and voltage regulators, so you can source them easily for your own PET computer restoration projects. Sit back and relax, and let's jump right into my Commodore PET 4032 restoration. Here is the back of my PET 4032. We'll get in close here so you can see all the labeling and the serial number, etc. Right there you can see engraved AUSD for Alameda Unified School District and 17861. The 4 PETs from this rescue have a variation of that number, ending in 0, 1, 2, 3, that kind of thing. And here is the back. On switch fuse, IEC connector, and I will be replacing that because that has got REFAs in it. Here is my PET 4032 board after having a bath in the ultrasonic cleaner for about 30 minutes. 20 plus years of crud has been removed. I got a little bit of footage of that. I'll try to stick that in to this video. But yeah, it's looking really good. That voltage regulator is rusty. This one is rusty. This one down here looks a little crummy. Then back in the back here, we've got some tip 29s. I believe those are for multiplexing with voltages. Yeah, and the socket for the 6502, pretty crusty. I'm going to replace that. But what's up next is, at minimum, I'm going to replace the 7905 -5 voltage regulator, which is right here. I'm going to replace this cap and this cap. I'm going to replace that voltage regulator. That is a 7812, which handles the plus 12 voltage. This one up here I'm going to replace. That is an LM323, handles the plus 5. And what else? And that's going to be the minimum that I'm going to do. Potentially, I'm going to have to replace these 2 RAM chips. Those are 2 114s. They are not socketed, but we'll find out first. But at minimum, before I power this thing up, those 2 caps, the voltage regulators, all going to be replaced. Here are the parts that I'm going to be replacing initially. Those two voltage regulators on the heatsink. I'm going to have to drill out the original ones, put in these new replacements. The two caps. One is a 4700 microfarad 25 volt. That's this one. And this one here is a 470 microfarad 16 volt. Got my 40 pin socket, the two tip 29s, and then the 7905 voltage regulator. We're going to start with that, and that should be minimum. And then probably, I don't have any, I've got them on order, 24 pin sockets for the edit ROM as well as the character ROM. Those sockets are kind of crummy, but I'm going to put some deoxit D5 in there, and we'll see if that helps initially. But yeah, now to go do some drilling and desoldering and soldering. After a little bit of time, the board work is done. I have replaced the voltage regulator there, cap, voltage regulator, and the two tip 29s. You can see the old parts there. And I wrote on there what those were because they're so rusted. And here's the old parts there. And let me tell you, drilling out rivets, pain in the butt. You can see the original rivets are still kind of in there, but got it out. Some new thermal paste. Oh yeah, the socket, the 6502 socket. So now I'm going to put the board in the machine and see if we can get it to chirp. I'm not going to connect it to the monitor because I still need to do some work to the VDU board, but I should at least get a chirp out of it. And if not, I can grab my PET RAM ROM board and see if that'll help. But first things first, let's get it into the case. Well, in typical fashion, I started doing work and wasn't recording any video footage. So to give you a quick recap of what I've done off camera, I loosely mounted the board inside the case. You'll notice I have my PET ROM RAM board plugged in, and I've got a different 6502. I pulled that from my VIC-20 because the original 6502 that was in it is bad. And I think I've got some bad RAM and some bad stuff going on over here as well. Reason being is with the PET ROM RAM board, it will boot and it'll chirp. But if I disable the onboard memory on the board there, it will not chirp. If I disable the onboard ROMs there, won't boot. So a little bit of work to be done, but let me grab my other Rode wireless mic. I'm going to stick it in the case and we're going to turn it on and you'll hear it chirp, and we'll proceed from there. All right, I've got my Rode wireless mic right there near the piezo speaker. I'm going to reach around the back here and turn it on. You hear it chirp. Go ahead and turn it off. I don't have the CRT plugged in yet because I need to work on that VDU board, and I think that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to work on that, take a step back from the PCB here, work on the video board, and go from there. And to get that out, I got to remove that screw and that screw to slide the back off, and then I'll tell you what I'm going to do. With the back off, you can see the CRT, the flyback, the anode cap, neck board, and all of that good stuff. I'm going to be replacing one capacitor, a couple of resistors, and a diode. And let me get this board out of here, and then I'll show you what I'm going to replace. This has not been powered on in many, many years, so I don't need to worry about discharging the CRT. But if you've never worked on a monitor before, use caution. There's high voltages. While we're in here, Amperex CRT type M31-334GH with a serial number of 175155. All right, let's remove the 4 screws and some wires and the anode cap and get this out of here. Here is the VDU board removed from the chassis. There's the CRT. Look at all that rust in there. We'll deal with that. But yeah, here's the board. I'm going to be replacing that cap right there, which is C754. You can see that, C754. I'm going to be replacing that diode right there, which is D754. And there's a couple of resistors down in there. Let's see if I can get those. They are R753 and R752. 752, 753. And according to Chuck Hutchins, those are fail points, known fail points on these VDU boards. So before I even power this thing up, I'm going to replace those items just to give it a fair shake at, powering up and having some picture. So, all right, let's get to replacing some parts.
2 hours later.
Got the cap, the diode, and the two resistors replaced. Right there, we'll zoom in on that. I did a little more cleaning of the board too. And here are the old parts, the cap, the two resistors, and the diode. That diode broke, and all three were dead shorted. So it's a good thing that I replaced those because this wouldn't have even worked. So a good chance of this now firing up. There is a transistor right there. It may or may not work. We'll find out. I do have that on order, so if needed, I'll be able to replace that. And again, yeah, I checked those. They were dead shorted. I used my fluke meter. Now to put that back into the case and do some more testing. As for the surface rust in there, I'm going to take care of that at a later date when the weather gets warmer to where I can spray it outside, some rust stopper remover, and then potentially repaint if I can find some paint that matches. The board is back in. I got all 4 screws, got the ground connected, the power and the video wires, anode cap, neck board, and something I noticed while working on this back here, I'm going to zoom in on that. April 25th, 1983, which tracks for when the 4032 came out, which was in 1983. The VDU board is now installed in the back of the monitor, as you just saw in the previous clip. I've got the board in the chassis. I still have the Rode wireless mic in the chassis because we had it chirping before, but we were no picture. I now have the VDU board plugged into the motherboard. So now I'm going to grab a power cord, plug it in, and we're going to fire this up and see if we get any kind of picture. I'm also going to zoom in the camera onto the screen. I've got a power cable plugged into the back of the PET. I've got the camera zoomed in on the screen. I'm going to reach around and power it up, and hopefully we get something on the screen. We know for sure we're going to hear a chirp. Let's fingers crossed we get a picture in 3, 2, 1, power. Waiting, waiting. Whoa, look at that. We have got a screen full of @ signs. We've got a picture though. I don't know if it's showing up well on camera, but it looks really good. The geometry looks pretty good as well. I'm not sure what all @ symbols mean on the screen. I'm going to need to research that really quick. But one more step closer to reviving this PET 4032. I am super excited. I did a little bit of research on what a full screen of @ symbols means, and that basically means 0, which is pointing towards a video RAM issue. This board uses two 114 video RAMs. I don't have any of those in my stock. However, I do have a parts VIC-20 board, an early VIC-20 board, and I know it's got some 2 114s on it. So now it's time to grab the Hakko desoldering gun, that VIC-20 board, pull out some RAM chips, and then I got to add 2 sockets to this 4032 motherboard. Here is my parts VIC-20 motherboard, as well as my Hakko FR301 desoldering gun. What I'm going to do now is remove all of the 2 114s from this board. There are 10 or 11 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Yeah, so there's 11 of those. Full disclosure, Don't know if they're going to work or not. This is, again, a parts board. I've pulled things off of it in the past, 6522s. I have pulled the 6502 processor off of it for another project. Those worked, but I don't know if these video RAM are going to work. But by pulling them all off, it's a good chance at least 2 of them will work, hopefully. And if not, I've got a buddy that's got a tube of brand new 2114s. He said he'd hook me up, but I'd like to try this first. Just, it's a donor board and hopefully we'll make it work. So time to fire up the Hako, start removing some chips, clean up the pins, remove the old ones from the 4032 motherboard, install 2 sockets, and start testing video RAM. Here is my VIC-20 donor board. I got all 11 2114s removed. However, there were a couple of casualties. Look at those things. Yep, had a couple of issues, but I did save some, and I did get the sockets installed on my PET 4032 board. So now I will get the board installed back in the machine, install 2 chips, and see if we've got our RAM issue taken care of. As you saw on the last clip, I was running the memory test on the PET RAM ROM board, and everything is checking out good on the video RAM. So now we're going to power up the machine and not be in PET test mode and see what happens. So here we go. In 3, 2, 1, power. So we got the chirp. We know that was golden. And here it is. We have got a cursor and the full 32K of memory. Sweet. Now to hook up the keyboard and see if that's working. I hooked up my keyboard and only, as I expected, not even a handful of keys worked. As you can see on the screen, the exclamation point worked, the ampersand, the L, the N, and the number 1. So that means I get to take the keyboard apart, remove 19 little tiny flathead screws. Whose ever idea at Commodore was to put flathead screws, they need to be taken out back and have a conversation. But anyways, so yeah, I'm going to do that next. And then I will scuff up the conductive pads with paper and give it a test. If that doesn't work, I'm just going to do conductive paint like I did on my PET 2001. I'll put a link to that video in my description because that was a pain in the butt doing that keyboard. So yeah, that's what's going to happen next. I am going to disassemble the keyboard. I've already detailed the top of it, but clean the inside and see where we're at. I just finished working on my PET 4032 keyboard, applying the conductive paint to all of the plungers. I did this a few years ago on my 2001 PET computer. A lot of people don't like using the conductive paint. I am personally a fan of it because the 2001 is still going strong years later. I did initially, when I restored this keyboard, did scuff up the pads and using, rubbing them on paper. That's what a lot of people say to do. And only a handful of keys started working. So instead of having to deal with removing 19 screws, desoldering, the shift lock and all that kind of stuff, I just thought I'm going to go with the conductive paint like I did before because I know it works. It works good for me. So that's what I've done. The instructions say to wait 10 to 15 minutes for it to cure and that you can use the keyboard within an hour. I like to wait at least 24 hours, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to just let this sit until tomorrow and put it back together and give it a test, and hopefully the whole keyboard works and we can get back to other things on the restoration of the PET 4032. Before I get everything fully plugged in and back together, like the keyboard cable and the video cable, I just wanted to do a quick pass over the motherboard so you can see all of the work that I have done. A lot of new ICs, a lot of sockets. We're calling this board Socket City. So many darn sockets. I do have some issues with the edit ROM. I'm waiting for an EEPROM and an adapter for that. I do know I have at least one, maybe two bad RAM chips. So I've got some 4116s on order as well as sockets for that. But that will be for a later video. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and plug everything in. And we're going to go ahead and test the keyboard. And then if all goes well, load some software and wrap up this video. I've got the computer on. I've got the keyboard reinstalled in the case. It's time to give it a quick little test. This is a test. Perfect. That works. For my longtime friends from back in the day from the Usenet groups, specifically the Wesley Crusher Die group, this is for you. Die, Will Wheaton. Now the reveal. Rest in peace, little Will Wheaton. The only thing left to do now is to test the IEEE port and the tape port. So I went ahead and plugged in my PET to SD into the IEEE port and to the tape port for the 5-volt power. Let's go ahead and load a directory. It's loading the directory, great. List the directory. Great. All right, let's go ahead and load Invaders. So we're gonna go up here. Load. And this is also giving me a chance to test the cursor keys. Comma 8. Spacebar. Loading. All right, that's loaded. Cursor down. Well, just for giggles, let's do Shift clear home. All right, and we're going to go ahead and type run. And there we go. We have got Space Invaders on the PET 4032 running great. This is awesome. And finally, after 4 months of blood, sweat, and tears, rust, and a boatload of bad ICs and a ton of work as you saw in this video, it's up and running and restored. I do have a few more things I'd like to do. I still need to replace the IUC connector that has refas in it. I have not done that yet. And I'm actually going to do a little touch-up painting. I used my 2031 drive to get a paint match, and so I got a quart of paint. I'm going to do a little touch-up here and there. Nothing major, but yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching. If you liked, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, thumbs down. Comment, subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this on my channel, and be sure to hit the notification bell so you'll be notified of when more videos are posted. Thanks again, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next video.